Another Earth Science video on the way. This is Norris Teaches Science with me, Mr. Norris. We're still talking about Earth science, still talking about the lithosphere in this unit, in this video. And today we're going to talk about something called non-renewable resources. So the video goal is I can discuss the pros and cons of the most popular non-renewable resources. So, what are non renewable resources? These are things that take millions of years to form. So, for example, fossil fuels, rocks, minerals. All right. And some people also include nuclear energy in here for non renewable. It's kind of both. It's the material needed for it is non renewable, but there's other stuff to it. So, we're not going to talk about nuclear. Um, So first off, what are fossil fuels? These are any past living materials that is found in rock that is mined out as an energy resource. Um, they are like coal, oil, natural gas. Those are your major fossil fuels. You're probably using fossil fuels in your daily life at this point. This is 2020. We use fossil fuels for a lot of things. We're not really dependent on um, alternative energies yet, but there is a push for that. All right, so again, I mentioned them. Some types of non-renewable energy sources are like coal, oil, natural gas, something called tar sands, and something called oil shells. So we're going to talk about these five right now. So the first one we're going to talk about is something called coal. What is it? Well, it's a fossil fuel formed from the decomposition of organic materials that it have exposed to heat and pressure in the earth. Um, I know a little bit about coal. My grandfather worked on a railroad. He was one of the engineers, people like that. The railroad company he worked for transported coal all around the United States. So when he retired, we actually had some pieces of coal in his shed. And when I needed a presentation in high school, I definitely took some just to show everyone. So the formation of coal, you start off with peat. You can see at the bottom down here. You start off with peat, then you go to lignite, then bituminous, and then anthracite, which is kind of like coal. And what we do, we burn coal to produce electricity. Coal burning power plants are what they're called, and that's a lot of the electricity that we get right now in the United States in 2020. So using coal, there's some pros and cons to using coal. One of the pros is that it produces a high amount of energy. There's a lot of energy that you can get from burning coal, and it's also a low cost fuel. It doesn't Coal doesn't cost a lot to obtain and use. The problems with it is it's a dirty fuel. It's very dirty. It's dirty because it releases pollutants into the atmosphere like CO2, carbon dioxide, SO2, sulfuric oxide, and NO2, nitric oxide. Um, and it also destroys the land. We have to mine the land to get the coal. And the best mines are the strip mines where they actually strip out the entire soil. And you can see in the picture here, this is an area that's a coal mine. And look at what it's done to the land. What is oil or petroleum? Um, it is the remains of plants and animals that are buried in ancient seas. We get it by extracting them with a well. We have to drill the well. And then it's refined into products like gasoline and some plastics. But like coal, there are some pros and some cons to using it. Pros, oil is again a high energy yield source. It produces a lot of energy and it's a low cost for fuel. The problems with it or the consequences of it, it releases pollutants just like coal. It releases pollutants to the atmosphere, and you have to worry about oil spills. This bird here has been caught in an oil spill. Some of the major ones in the United States, we can think of Deepwater Horizon, the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Exxon Valdez oil spill. I believe that was up in Alaska. I mean, they caused damage to wildlife. Wildlife can't survive. They cut their feathers. They can't breathe. It's really bad for wildlife if oil spills, and it's really hard to clean up. Uh, Luckily, oil stays on top, so we can kind of scoop it, but it takes forever to clean it up. We also have developed like things like biochemical agents that can dissolve it, or we even have microbes that can go and actually eat the oil. But again, it's going to take a while and it's going to still cause damage. What is natural gas? Natural gas is trapped in the porous rocks beneath the earth, and it's usually right above an oil deposition. Now, using it, pros and cons, it is one of the cleanest energies that we can mine. That means that we can extract out of the earth. And there's little land destroyed when we mine it. The problem is that it does release CO2 in the atmosphere when we burn it. And fracking is one of the ways that we get it. And there's a lot of controversy over fracking and if it poisons the water supplies because you have to. Fracking is when a well is ejected water and it's to get the well water into a well water, and let me stop. It is so that the gas is brought up to the surface. And then the last two are called tar sands and oil shells. These are hopefully going to be helpful for when our oil and our coal supplies run out. These could be a substitute. Tar sands is a mixture of clay, sand, and water in a combustible bitumen, which is a heavy oil with high sulfur content. And oil shells contain kerogen, um, which can be extracted from crushed oil shells by heating. So, what are the pros and cons to using it? First off, they are alternatives for when oil is depleted. At some point, we're going to deplete all the oil that's in the earth at some point. And so we could start using these as substitutes. And they have a moderate energy yield. They don't have as much energy yield as coal and oil and natural gas, but they do have a good amount of energy yield. The problem is we have to destroy the land when we want to extract it. You can see in the picture here, one side is what the land looked like before we started to take out the tar sands and oil shells. And again, it's still a dirty source of energy because it's going to release pollutants into the atmosphere. And that's a whole nother topic when we talk about climate change. All right. So these are some non-renewable resources that I hope you learned a little bit about. If you want to know more, go search for it yourself. But this is Mr. Norris. He's signing out for this video.